vintage German double-decker buses. Certainly a bit different than British double-deckers. One distinguishing feature that some of them had was a long engine hood on the front. But in the 1950s in East Berlin, this was taken to the extreme, and it sure was distinctive. This is the story of the East Berlin DO54 and DO56 double-deckers, the bus that had a very big snout. Hi, this is Jeffrey. Now, one country outside of the UK that has a long history of utilizing double-decker buses is Germany. Now, if you take a look at double-decker buses that were designed and built in Germany in, let's say, the 1920s and the 1930s, you will see that some of them have a very distinctive feature to them, which is the very elongated engine hood in the front. Now, in the 1950s, this feature was revived in a new bus for East Berlin. And I've seen pictures of this bus, and I've always, wondered about it, because to me, it was the big snout bus. It looked like it had a big nose in front. And I did research on it, and I found out it's called the DO54 and DO56 series buses. And so that's what we're going to learn about in this video. So let's get started in learning about the DO54 and DO56 buses of East Berlin, also known to me as the Big Snout buses. After the Second World War, Berlin initially only had its pre-war fleet for operational use, and many of those buses that survived were certainly not in the best of condition. As most of these vehicles dated from the 1920s and 1930s, it was necessary to begin replacing this outdated fleet. In 1953 through 1954, the BVG Ost, which was the East Berlin Transport Company, designed its own prototype double-decker bus. After the vehicle frame was manufactured according to their drawings at the VEB Waggonbau-bautzen and transported to Berlin, the frame was then equipped with axles, engine, transmission, and steering to form a drivable chassis at the then Omnibus and Truck Works in Berlin, Treptow, which was the former main bus workshop. After testing this chassis, it was assembled with the body, which was also built in Treptow. This new bus will eventually be known as Type DO54, with the DO being short for Doppledecker. Tests of the prototype took place starting in February of 1954. In May of 1954, police approval was granted, and the double-decker, designated as bus number 900, was tested out on the road for its operational suitability. After testing, a pilot series of 5 buses, number 901 to 905, was built in 1955, which followed the same pattern and construction method as the prototype. The 5 buses then began scheduled services starting in January of 1956. One bus from this pilot served as a model for a larger series production built by VEB. The series vehicles, number 906 through 984, were then manufactured into production lots in 1956 and 1957. Its most visually outstanding feature, of course, is the long, low-engine bonnet at the front, which gives it a most distinctive look. Now, let's take a look at some of the basic specifications of the DO54 East German double-decker bus. Number 1, length is 9.9 meters. Number 2, width is 2.5 meters. Number 3, height is 4.05 meters. Number 4, seating capacity is 52 with 28 on the top and 24 on the bottom deck, and standing capacity is 18. Number 5. Empty weight is 10.37 tons. Number 6. Engine is the 4-stroke EM6 diesel, generating 120 horsepower. Number 7. Gearbox is 5-speed manual transmission. And finally, number 8. Brakes are 2-circuit compressed air. The buses use the same drivetrain and other components of the IFA H6 truck model. The frame of the body was made of wood and covered with sheet metal like previous bus models. It was not until the further development of the DO56 produced from 1957 to 1959 that a steel structure was utilized. While the passenger compartment on the lower deck had a central aisle, there was a sunken side aisle for the upper deck on the left-hand side due to the generous height of the ceiling. However, the upper deck, with its 4 abreast seating, had little to no comfortable standing height or headroom along the benches. The interior of the DO54 was lined with dark brown melamine panels, and the upholstery of the benches was covered with green artificial leather. The driver's compartment was separated from the passenger compartment by a wall with 2 windows, and it had an access door hinged at the front on each side of the bus. The rear entrances, which were initially open, were closed with 4-part folding doors in 1963 through 1964 due to safety regulations and the introduction of one-man operation. The front passenger door was a compressed air-operated pocket sliding door and served only as an exit until the introduction of one-man operation. An optical acoustic warning system of red lights and bells on the doors and fare boxes were also installed for passenger flow when driver-only operation occurred. Originally, there was a heavy curtain as a heat barrier between the platform and the interior in the lower deck, which was removed during the conversion. 3 vehicles, number 901, 902, and 977, were equipped with driving instruction equipment, which was achieved, among other things, by installing an additional clutch and brake pedal on the passenger seat. The DO54 buses were withdrawn from service between 1968 and 1974. After removing some components for spare parts, the majority of the vehicles were purchased by private individuals and used as workshops or garden sheds. The Berlin Local Transport Monument Preservation Association, also known as DVNB, purchased bus number 929, which was also used as a garden shed in 1989, and refurbished it to operational use. The bus, known as Hugo, was registered in October of 2005, and it is now available for occasional special trips. After production of the DO54 ended, the DO56, introduced in 1957, was the second iteration and is also based on the chassis and drive of the IFA H6 truck model. As successors to the DO54, the vehicles were the last new development of a double-decker bus in the GDR. Unlike the DO54, the frame of the body was no longer made of wood, but of steel. Visually, the DO56 differs slightly from its predecessor in that it has curved windscreens on the sides and 8 finer horizontal trim strips in front of the grille on the engine bay. The DO54 had flat windows and 5 coarser strips on the grille. The DO56 had nearly similar features to the DO54 and followed the same pattern described above as to its doors and one-man operation. However, DO56 double-deckers used in Leipzig were given a smaller entrance cutout with a 3-part door, and the stairs had to be modified for this change. In addition to the 105 buses numbered 001 through 105 that were delivered to the BVG Ost, a smaller number were also delivered to about 10 other cities in the GDR. Number 073 was delivered as a gift to the Soviet Union in 1959, driving under its own power for 41 hours, together with 2 DOSA double-decker semi-trailer truck buses, where they were used for a short time in Moscow's transport system. By 1974, the remaining DO-56 buses still in operation were decommissioned, some of which were then purchased by private individuals and used as guarding sheds. 2 of the vehicles are now in the possession of the Berlin Local Transport Monument Preservation Association, of which Bus 088 is available as a roadworthy example for special trips. Bus 010 was owned by the Berlin Transport Company until 1977, then became a historic monument, and is now on loan to the Old Timer Bus Association of Berlin for special, themed, and historic trips. And if you really like this type of bus, you can probably find one of these 1/87th HO scale models that have been made of the DO-56. So there it is, the story of the East German DO-54 and DO-56 double-decker buses of the 1950s. Quite a distinctive design, isn't it? And it's not your typical British double-decker style. Now, it would be interesting to hear what people think of it, and am I right in calling this the Big Snout bus? That's just what I call it. So it would be interesting to hear your opinion on that as well. And also, if there's anyone out there who knows exactly how many of these buses were built, that would be also good to know, because I only got the information on Berlin. I was only to find out how many buses of this type were built for Berlin, but I couldn't find how many of these buses were built for the other 9 cities or so. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this look at the DO-54 and DO-56 buses of East Germany. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.